The rain came down in sheets over the Greyhound station, and Marcus Webb stood in the middle of it all, one hand pressed flat against a stranger's back, the other raised in defense. His voice cut through the storm, deep, steady, unshakable. "You're gonna step away from her. Now." The man who'd been shouting at the woman, a tall, red-faced guy in a stained baseball cap, took a half-step back, more surprised than intimidated. The woman was trembling. Her hands shook violently as she tried to gather the scattered contents of her tote bag from the wet pavement. She wore mismatched shoes. One was sneaker, one was a worn brown loafer. Marcus didn't know her, had never seen her before. But when he'd walked out of the station and seen this man looming over her, screaming about her being in his way, something in Marcus's chest had locked into place. "You don't talk to people like that," Marcus said, his voice quiet now, almost calm. "You don't get to talk to anyone like that." The man muttered something under his breath, shoved his hands in his pockets, and walked away. Marcus crouched down, his knees popping. He started picking up the woman's things, a half-empty bottle of water, a crumpled bus ticket, a small notebook with the pages swollen from rain. His daughter Keisha's face flashed in his mind, and he pushed it away. Focus. "Hey," he said, softer now. "You okay? Can I help you up?" The woman looked at him. Her eyes were hazel, warm and frightened and searching all at once. She didn't speak. Her jaw worked like she was trying to form words, but nothing came out. Her hands kept shaking. "My name's Marcus," he said, holding out his palm. "I'm not going to hurt you. I just want to make sure you're all right." She stared at his hand. Then slowly, she took it. Marcus Webb was 37 years old. He worked double shifts at the Starlight Diner, a greasy spoon on the south side of the city that never seemed to close. The diner's neon sign flickered, STAR always, LIGHT depending on the weather, and sometimes just the ghost of the R. He'd been there 11 years. His day started at 4:30 a.m. when the world was still dark and quiet. He'd make breakfast for his daughter Keisha, scrambled eggs, toast, orange juice, before waking her up at 6. She was 10. She had her mother's cheekbones and his stubbornness, and she was the only reason he got out of bed most mornings. Her mother, Denise, had left when Keisha was 3, just packed a bag one Tuesday and walked out. No note. No explanation. Marcus had spent the first year after that waiting for a phone call that never came. He'd spent the second year angry. The third year, he'd started to accept it. Now, he did what he had to do. He worked. He raised his daughter. He kept his head down and his heart guarded. His apartment was small, 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, a kitchen, where the oven door didn't close all the way. The couch was covered in a faded blue blanket Keisha had picked out from a thrift store. The walls were thin. He could hear the neighbor's TV at all hours. But it was theirs. It was enough. At the diner, Marcus was known as the quiet one. He didn't chat much with the regulars. He didn't join the gossip. He just moved through his shifts like a machine, pouring coffee, flipping pancakes, wiping down counters. If someone was rude, he'd give them a look, just one, and they'd usually settle down. He didn't need to raise his voice. He'd learned that from his father, a man who'd raised his voice plenty, a man Marcus hadn't spoken to in 15 years. The woman at the bus station was named Lena. Marcus found this out because she had a medical alert bracelet on her wrist, and when he helped her to her feet, he saw it. Small, silver. On the back, in tiny engraved letters, Lena Hart, seizure disorder, emergency contact, none. None. That word stayed with him. He offered to call someone for her. She shook her head. "Are you waiting for a bus?" he asked. She nodded, then pointed at the Greyhound schedule board. Her finger was unsteady, trembling, but she was trying so hard to be clear. He followed her gaze. The bus to Springfield departed in 20 minutes. "Okay," he said. "Okay. Do you have your ticket?" She looked down at her hands. She started patting her pockets, her face crumpling with panic. The rain was still coming down. Her hair, dark, curly, matted, was plastered to her forehead. She started making small sounds, little gasps that weren't quite words. "Hey, hey," Marcus said, his voice dropping lower. "It's okay. We'll find it. Did you have it in your hand?" She nodded frantically. Marcus looked around. The pavement was wet, dark. He got down on his knees, rainwater soaking through his jeans, and started searching. His hands moved slowly, deliberately. He knew how to search for things. He'd spent too many nights looking for Keisha's lost library books, her misplaced homework, her favorite hair clip that always seemed to vanish. "Found it," he said, holding up the crumpled ticket. It was waterlogged but legible. Lena's face transformed. The panic dissolved into something like relief. But there was something else there too. A kind of wonder, like she wasn't used to people helping her. Like she'd forgotten what it felt like. Marcus walked her to the bus. He carried her tote bag. He stood by the door as she climbed the steps, her movements slow and careful, one hand gripping the railing like she was climbing a mountain. "Take care of yourself, Lena," he said. She turned and looked at him. Her lips moved. She was trying to say something. He watched her struggle, watched the frustration build behind her eyes. "It's okay," he said. "You don't have to say anything." But she did. She forced it out, her voice scratchy and broken, barely a whisper. "Thank you." The bus doors closed. The engine rumbled to life. Marcus watched it pull away, watched Lena's face in the window, her hand pressed against the glass. He didn't know why he stood there until the bus was completely out of sight. He just did. 2 weeks passed. Marcus fell back into his routine. Wake up, make breakfast, take Keisha to school, work, pick her up, help with homework, dinner, bed, repeat. On Fridays, they had pizza night. Keisha always wanted pepperoni and pineapple, and Marcus always pretended to hate it, but he'd eat 3 slices anyway. She'd laugh at him, that bright, easy laugh that made everything feel possible. "What did you learn in school today?" he asked, pulling a slice from the box. "Fractions," she said, making a face. "They're so boring." "Fractions are important," he said. "Fractions are how you know if you're getting a good deal at the grocery store." "Dad, you don't even buy groceries. We get everything from the gas station." "Gas station groceries are groceries." She rolled her eyes. He loved when she did that. She had her mother's eyes, wide and dark, but she had his expression. The same suspicious squint. The same crooked smile. "Can I sleep over at Maya's house tomorrow?" she asked. "Did you finish your homework?" "Yes." "Did you clean your room?" "Mostly." "Mostly isn't yes." "Dad." "Fine. But I'm picking you up at 9. 9 is so early." 10. "Deal." She smiled her crooked smile, and Marcus felt something loosen in his chest. This was what mattered. This was the whole point. The next day, Marcus was working the afternoon shift when a woman came into the diner. He was wiping down the counter, his back to the door, when he heard the bell jingle. He turned around, and his brain stalled for a second, trying to place her. Dark curly hair, hazel eyes, a small, uncertain smile. "Lena?" She was wearing the same mismatched shoes. Her hands were shaking, but less than before. She had a small notebook clutched to her chest. She raised it, opened it, and showed him a page. "Hello. I came back to say thank you properly. Do you have a minute?" Marcus stared at the notebook, then at her face. She was watching him with that same searching expression, like she was trying to read something hidden behind his eyes. Of course, he said. Sit down. Anywhere you want. She chose a booth by the window. Marcus brought her a glass of water and a menu, even though he suspected she wouldn't eat. She was too nervous. He could see it in the way her fingers tapped against the tabletop, the way her eyes darted around the room. "How did you find me?" he asked. She opened her notebook again, already writing. "I remembered the sign, the broken neon." I asked around. "Starlight Diner," he said. "Yeah, we're easy to find." She smiled. It was a small smile, barely there, but it transformed her face, made her look younger, softer. "I wanted to thank you," she wrote. "I don't know what would have happened if you hadn't been there." I freeze. When people yell, I can't move. I can't think. I just stop. Marcus read the words slowly. He could feel the weight behind them, the exhaustion, the loneliness. "You don't have to thank me," he said. "I was just doing what anyone would do." She shook her head, wrote again. No, they wouldn't. He didn't know what to say to that. So he said nothing. He just sat with her, letting her presence fill the space between them. After that, Lena started coming to the diner. Every Tuesday and Thursday, right around 3 in the afternoon, she'd walk through the door. She'd take the same booth by the window. She'd order the same thing, a cup of tea with honey, no food. And she'd write in her notebook while Marcus worked. At first, she didn't talk much. She'd just sit, sip her tea, and watch the street outside. But slowly, Marcus started to learn things about her. She was 32. She lived in a small apartment on the other side of town. She had a condition called non-epileptic seizures, attacks that weren't caused by electrical activity in the brain, but by stress, trauma, overwhelming emotion. She'd had it for years. There was no cure, only management. The shaking in her hands was constant, but sometimes it got worse. Those were the bad days. She'd lost her job as a graphic designer 6 months ago. "Company downsized," she'd written in her notebook. "They let me go first. I think they were tired of accommodating me." Marcus had read that sentence and felt something hot and tight in his chest. He started leaving her notes. Nothing big, just small things. "Someone left $1 in the booth today. I thought you'd want it for a tip." Or, "The new shipment of tea came in. The honey's fresh." She kept every single note. He noticed them sticking out of her notebook, the corners folded and worn. One Tuesday, he brought her a flower. It was a daisy, the kind that grew wild in the empty lot behind the diner. He'd picked it on his way in. "For you," he said, handing it to her. Lena stared at the flower. Her hands were shaking more than usual. He saw her swallow hard, saw her eyes get bright and wet. "Sorry," he said, suddenly unsure. "I didn't mean to." She shook her head, took the flower, held it like it was made of glass. She wrote in her notebook, her handwriting wobblier than normal. "No one has ever given me a flower before." Marcus didn't know what to say. The silence stretched between them, but it wasn't uncomfortable. It was something else, something he hadn't felt in a long time. He told Keisha about Lena that night at dinner. "So there's this lady," he said, stirring his pasta, trying to sound casual. "She's been coming to the diner. She has a condition. She can't always speak. She writes things down in a notebook." Keisha looked at him, her brow furrowed. "Is she a friend?" "I don't know," he said. "Maybe." "What's her name?" "Lena." "Lena," Keisha repeated, testing the word. "Does she have a family, a husband?" "No, she lives alone." "That's sad." "Yeah," Marcus said. "It is." "Can I meet her?" The question caught him off guard. He thought about it. Lena was fragile, easily overwhelmed. Meeting a 10-year-old might be too much. Maybe, he said. We'll see. 3 weeks later, Marcus was closing the diner when his phone buzzed. It was a number he didn't recognize. He almost didn't answer, but something stopped him. Hello? Mr. Webb? A woman's voice, professional, controlled. Yes? This is St. Catherine's Hospital. We have a patient here, Lena Hart. You're listed as her emergency contact. Marcus's blood went cold. I'm not, he started. She doesn't have... Sir, I'm looking at her chart. There's been a change. She came in an hour ago, non-verbal, high stress. She was carrying a business card with your name and number on it. We need someone to come in. She's asking for you. Asking for him. Lena, who could barely speak, who wrote everything down, was asking for him. I'll be there, he said. Tell her I'm coming. The hospital was cold, bright, antiseptic. Marcus walked through the halls with his hands in his pockets, trying to keep his breathing steady. He'd been in hospitals before. When Keisha was born. When Denise had left. When his own father had had his first heart attack, and Marcus had stood in the waiting room, unable to decide if he wanted his father to live or not. Lena's room was at the end of the hall. He knocked, soft and tentative. Lena? He pushed the door open. She was sitting up in bed, her dark hair spread across the pillow, her eyes red-rimmed. She looked smaller than usual, frailer. Hey, he said, moving to her bedside. You okay? What happened? She didn't reach for her notebook. She just looked at him, and something in her expression made his chest tighten. She looked relieved and scared. You came, she whispered. It was the first time he'd heard her speak more than a single word. Her voice was raspy, raw, like she'd been crying for hours. Of course I came, he said. What happened? She was crying now, silent tears streaming down her face. Her hands were shaking so badly she couldn't hold the notebook. Marcus reached out and took her hand. It was cold and small in his. I don't have anyone, she said, her voice breaking. I thought I was fine with it. I thought I was okay being alone. But I'm not. I'm not okay. You're not alone, he said. You have me. She shook her head. You don't even know me. I know enough. He stayed with her that night. He sat in the uncomfortable plastic chair by her bed, dozing on and off, holding her hand when she had bad moments. The nurses came and went, checking monitors, taking vitals. Marcus asked questions, tried to understand. The doctor said it was a stress-induced episode, but there was nothing wrong physically. She was healthy, just overwhelmed. In the morning, she woke up and looked at him like she was seeing him for the first time. You stayed, she said. You needed someone, he said. I couldn't leave. She started writing in her notebook again. Her hand was steadier than it had been. Why did you help me at the bus station? You didn't have to. Marcus thought about it. He thought about all the times he'd passed by people who needed help, all the times he'd looked away because it was easier. My daughter, he said. I have a 10-year-old daughter. Her name is Keisha. And I think I want her to live in a world where people help each other. So I try to be that person, even when it's hard. Lena looked at him for a long moment. Then she wrote, Your daughter is lucky. He shook his head. I'm the lucky one. Things changed after that. Lena became a regular presence in Marcus's life. Not just at the diner. He started going to her apartment on his days off, helping her with little things, fixing a leaky faucet, changing a light bulb, things she couldn't do with her shaking hands, things no one had ever offered to do before. She started making him dinner. He'd sit in her tiny kitchen, drinking tea and watching her move around the stove. She was slow, deliberate, careful, but she was happy. He could see it in the way she hummed, the way she tapped her foot to a rhythm only she could hear. Keisha met her too. Marcus had been nervous about it, but Keisha, being Keisha, had walked right up to Lena and said, "My dad says you have a cool notebook." Lena had laughed, a real laugh, the first time Marcus had ever heard it, and she'd shown Keisha how she wrote everything down. Keisha was fascinated. She started asking Lena questions. "Can you write my name? What's your favorite color? Do you like pizza?" Lena had answered all of them, her handwriting getting faster and more confident as she went. "She's nice," Keisha said on the ride home. "I like her." "Me too," Marcus said. The conflict came from somewhere he hadn't expected. His mother, Celeste, had been calling him for weeks. He'd ignored every call. He knew why she was calling. His father was sick, terminal. The doctors had given him 6 months, maybe less. His mother wanted Marcus to come home, to say goodbye, to make peace. Marcus didn't want to make peace. He didn't want to see his father. He didn't want to remember the shouting, the slammed doors, the way his father had looked at him when he'd failed, when he'd dropped out of college, when he'd gotten Denise pregnant, when he'd become a single dad at 26. "No," Marcus said, when he finally answered. "I'm not coming." "Marcus, please," his mother said. Her voice was tired, broken. "He's your father. He's dying. He stopped being my father a long time ago. He's been asking about you. He wants to see you. He can ask all he wants. I'm not coming." He hung up. Then he sat in his apartment staring at the wall, feeling nothing but the familiar ache in his chest. He told Lena about it the next day. "I don't want to see him," he said. "He made my life hell. He made my mother's life hell. Why should I care that he's dying?" Lena listened. She didn't write anything. She just sat, her hands folded on the table, and let him talk. "Sometimes I think about him and I still get so angry," Marcus said. "I'm 37 years old, and I can't let it go." "You don't have to let it go," Lena wrote. "You just have to decide what kind of person you want to be." "I don't understand." "Maybe seeing him isn't about forgiving him. Maybe it's about knowing you're not like him, that you're breaking the cycle, for yourself, for Keisha." Marcus read the words twice. Then he closed his eyes and let out a long breath. "When did you get so smart?" She smiled. "I've always been smart. No one asked me before." He went. He drove 6 hours to his parents' house, a small ranch-style home in the suburbs. His mother was waiting on the porch, her hair grayer than he remembered, her face etched with worry. "Marcus," she said, pulling him into a hug. "Thank you. Thank you for coming." He let her hold him. It felt strange. He'd been holding himself together for so long, he'd forgotten what it felt like to be held. His father was in the back bedroom. A hospital bed had been set up. Machines beeped. The blinds were drawn. Marcus stood in the doorway, looking at the man who'd raised him. The man who'd taught him to be tough, to never show weakness, to never depend on anyone. The man who'd called him a failure when he'd gotten Denise pregnant. The man who'd told him he was wasting his life. His father's eyes were open. He looked smaller, shrunken. The anger that had once burned so bright had faded to something tired and sad. "Marcus," his father said. His voice was a whisper. "Dad, come here." Marcus walked to the bedside. He didn't sit. He just stood, looking down at the man who'd shaped him. "I'm sorry," his father said. The words came out slow, uneven. "I know I wasn't. I know I hurt you. I was angry. I was always angry. I thought that's how a man was supposed to be. I was wrong." Marcus didn't say anything. He couldn't. His throat was too tight. "You're a good father," his father said. "I watched you. I saw how you raised that little girl. She's happy, smart. You did everything right. Everything I couldn't do. You didn't even call, Marcus said. You never called. I know. I was ashamed. Every day. I was ashamed. Marcus sat down. He put his head in his hands. He thought about his daughter. He thought about Lena. He thought about all the people who'd loved him despite everything he'd been through. He thought about how hard he'd fought to be different. Dad, he said, I'm tired. I'm so tired of carrying this. I know, son. I know. He stayed for 3 days. He helped his mother around the house. He sat with his father in the quiet hours, not saying much, just being present. It was hard. Every moment was hard. But it was also healing, in a way he hadn't expected. On the 3rd day, his father gave him something. A small wooden box. Old. Worn. What's this? Marcus asked. Open it, his father said. Marcus opened the box. Inside was a photograph. A young woman, maybe in her 20s. Dark curly hair, hazel eyes, a small, uncertain smile. Marcus stared at the photograph. His mind was racing, trying to understand. The woman looked familiar. She looked like, I had a daughter, his father said. Before you, before your mother. A daughter I never knew about. Her mother died when she was 8. She was put in foster care. I tried to find her, but by the time I knew she existed, it was too late. She'd been adopted. New name. New identity. I never saw her again. Marcus's hands were shaking. He looked at the photograph again. Dad, he said. What was her name? His father closed his eyes. It was Lena. Lena Hart. The world tilted. Marcus sat there, the photograph in his hands, his mind spinning. Lena. Lena Hart. The woman who'd come to the Greyhound station. The woman who couldn't speak. The woman who'd been so alone. The woman he'd been helping. The woman who had no emergency contact. The woman who'd told him, in her notebook, that she'd never had anyone. Dad, he said, his voice cracking. I know her. I've been helping her. She's been in my life for months. His father's eyes opened wide. What? I met her at the bus station. She was being harassed. I stepped in. She's been coming to my diner. I've been helping her. Dad, she's my sister. His father started crying. Silent tears, the kind that come from a place too deep to make sound. Take care of her, his father said. Please. She's been alone her whole life. She doesn't have anyone. Promise me you'll take care of her. I promise, Marcus said. I promise. He drove back that night, the photograph in his pocket. He didn't call Lena. He didn't know what to say. This was too big for a phone call. This was too big for anything but sitting down, face to face, and letting the truth come out. He went to her apartment. It was late. He knocked, and when she opened the door, she looked at him with that same searching expression, always looking for something. Lena, he said, can I come in? She nodded, stepped aside. He sat on her couch. She sat across from him. I found something, he said, pulling out the photograph. Something I need to show you. He handed it to her. She stared at it. Her hands started shaking. That's my mother, she said, her voice a whisper. That's my mother. It's also my father's daughter, he said. He had a daughter before me. A daughter he lost. A daughter he never got to raise. Lena looked up at him. Her eyes were wide, her lips parted. "Lena," he said, "I think you're my sister." She didn't speak for a long time. She stared at the photograph. She touched it. She traced her mother's face with her trembling fingers. "I never knew," she said. "I never knew who my father was. I asked once. My mother wouldn't tell me. She said it didn't matter. She said I was better off not knowing." Marcus moved closer. He took her hand. "You told me you didn't have anyone," he said. "But you do. You have me. You have Keisha. You have a family." Lena started crying. So did Marcus. They sat there, holding hands, both of them crying, both of them realizing that the loneliness they'd carried for so long was finally over. The funeral was small. Marcus's father passed 3 weeks later. Marcus stood at the gravesite, Keisha on one side, Lena on the other. Lena held his hand, her grip steady for the first time since he'd met her. "He never got to know you," Marcus said, "but he would have loved you." Lena looked at him. "He loved you," she said. "He just didn't know how to show it." Marcus nodded. He thought about everything his father had given him, not just the pain, but the lessons, the determination to be better, to be softer, to hold on to the people who mattered. He squeezed Lena's hand. "Come on," he said. "Let's go home." 6 months later, Lena moved into Marcus's building. The apartment next door had opened up, and Marcus had helped her find it. He'd helped her pack. He'd helped her paint the walls a pale yellow, her favorite color. Keisha had helped too, painting her own small section of the wall, a little sun in the corner. "She's my aunt?" Keisha had asked, when Marcus had explained everything. "She's your aunt," he said. "That's so cool. Do I have to call her Aunt Lena?" "You can call her whatever she wants." "I'm calling her Lena." Lena had laughed at that. She laughed more now. Her hands still shook, but less. The seizures were less frequent. She'd started doing freelance graphic design work again, small projects from home. She had purpose. She had connection. She had family. Every Tuesday and Thursday they still had tea at the diner. But now Marcus sat with her, not serving her. They'd talk, or rather, she'd write, and he'd listen. They'd laugh. They'd plan. They'd just be together. On one of those Tuesdays, Marcus walked into the diner and saw Lena at their usual booth. She had a small box in front of her, wrapped in brown paper. "What's this?" he asked. "Open it," she said. He opened the box. Inside was a small, hand-painted sign. Starlight Diner, family owned and operated. Underneath it, someone had painted a tiny daisy. "I painted it," she said. "It's not perfect, but I wanted—" "It's perfect," he said. "It's perfect." He hung the sign above the door. Every time he looked at it, he remembered the bus station, the rain, the woman who couldn't speak. He remembered his father, and the photograph, and the truth that had changed everything. He remembered that family wasn't just blood. It was the people who showed up, the people who stayed, the people who picked you up when you fell. Lena had picked him up, in her own way. She'd shown him that it was okay to need people, that it was okay to be soft, that the world wasn't just pain and loneliness. It was also daisies and tea and a hand to hold. One evening, Marcus and Lena sat on the fire escape of their building, watching the sunset. It was their new ritual. Every night, if the weather was good, they'd sit on the fire escape and talk. Or not talk. Just sit. "Thank you," Lena said, "for everything." Marcus looked at her. She was looking out at the city, her profile soft in the golden light. "You're my sister," he said. "You don't have to thank me." "Yes, I do," she said. "You could have walked away. So many people walked away. But you didn't. You stayed." Marcus thought about all the times he'd wanted to give up, all the times he'd felt like he was drowning, all the times he'd thought he was alone. "Lena," he said, "the night I met you at the bus station, I was having the worst day. I mean the absolute worst. I just found out my ex-wife was getting remarried. I felt like a failure, like I'd wasted my whole life. And then I saw you, and I realized there were worse things than being alone. There were worse things than being scared. There were worse things than feeling like you had no one." He reached over and took her hand. "You needed someone," he said, "and I needed someone too. We found each other." Lena smiled, that small, bright smile that had transformed her face the first time he'd seen it. "I think my mother sent you," she said. "I think she's been watching out for me all this time." "Maybe," Marcus said. "Or maybe we just got lucky. Maybe both." They sat in silence, watching the sun sink below the horizon. The city glowed around them, a million lights flickering to life. Later that night, Marcus tucked Keisha into bed. "Dad," she said, her voice sleepy, "do you think Aunt Lena is going to be okay?" Marcus smiled. "Yeah, baby. I think she's going to be more than okay. She's got us." "Good," Keisha said, "because she's my favorite aunt." "I thought she was your only aunt." "Doesn't matter. She's still my favorite." Marcus kissed her forehead. "Go to sleep." "Love you, Dad." "Love you too." He stood in the doorway for a moment, watching his daughter sleep. Then he walked to the living room, where the small wooden box sat on the mantel. He opened it, pulled out the photograph, and looked at it. A young woman, dark curly hair, hazel eyes, a small, uncertain smile. Marcus touched her face with his finger. "I found her," he whispered. "I found her, and I'm not letting go." The next morning, Marcus walked into the diner early. He made coffee. He set up the tables. He looked around at the cracked vinyl booths and the flickering sign and the tiny daisy painted on the wall above the counter. He'd spent 11 years here. 11 years of working, of surviving, of holding on. He'd thought his life was small. He'd thought he didn't matter. But he'd been wrong. The door jingled. Lena walked in, her notebook tucked under her arm. "Morning," she said. Her voice was getting stronger. She could say whole sentences now, most days. "Morning," Marcus said, handing her a cup of tea. "You know, I think this is the best job in the world." Lena smiled. "That's because you have the best customers." "I think it's because I have the best sister." She rolled her eyes, but she was smiling. Marcus looked around one more time. The diner, the sign, the daisy, the woman who'd become his sister, his friend, his family. He didn't know what the future held. He didn't know if the struggles would ever fully end. He didn't know if the pain he'd carried for so long would ever completely heal. But he knew one thing. He wasn't alone anymore. He'd never be alone again. And that was enough. That was everything. Hey, if this story touched your heart, drop a comment below. Tell me, have you ever had a moment where a stranger turned out to be something more? Where the universe surprised you in the most unexpected way? And if you want more stories about family, resilience, and the beautiful, unexpected moments that change everything, subscribe to this channel. Because life is messy and complicated and hard, but it's also full of miracles, and I believe in telling those stories. Thanks for watching. Stay kind, stay open, and never stop believing that someone out there needs you, and that you might need them too.